All right, we're back. Graveyard Shift Movie Podcast, episode number 137. And this week, it is the Child's Play finale. Because we're done. This is the final movie of the series. Besides the TV show, which I guess we're not technically done because I am gonna watch the TV show again. But the final movie lined up that we have, which is Child's Play from 2019, the very controversial remake, if you will. So, here's the thing with this movie that I've always maintained. I figure I'll talk about it a little bit before we start. I think this is a very good movie. I think it's very well done, and I think it's a good movie. If I was rating it just as a movie, it'd probably be a 7. In all honesty, it would probably be a 7. Here's the problem. Who did this? Universal, I think? Is that who took it and did it? But regardless, basically this movie was strong-armed into happening, and all of the original fucking people were just kicked. They were like, hey, we sort of had a cliffhanger at the end of the last movie. We kind of want to just keep doing that. Can we keep doing that? And the studio was like, fuck you. We're kicking your ass to the curb. And they just strong-armed the series away from Don Mancini and Brad Dourif and, everyone involved in it. Don Mancini, who has been involved in literally every movie that's happened, directed half of them? He started with Seed. Okay, so maybe less than half. But yeah, Child's Play is Don Mancini's baby, if you it's his thing, and they just kind of took it away from him. And this isn't Child's Play. This isn't Chucky. If you go watch any horror remake, it's the same character. They take it, they fancy it up a little bit, but it's the same guy. This is not Chucky. There's no Charles Lee Ray. There's no voodoo curse or anything. They went more AI. Basically, this whole movie seems like what Megan is, which I haven't watched Megan yet, but it just where it's the toy robot fucking thing, and it goes crazy. But it's not Chucky. It has none of the elements of Chucky. They could have very well taken this movie, made an entirely different. They could have made Megan before Megan was a thing. But they were like, no, we want the Child's Play. There's no reason for him to be called Chucky in the movie. When we go, he just gives it to himself. He asks Andy, he's like, what's my name? And Andy has a Star Wars joke, because get it, Mark Hamill is the voice, so we gotta have a Star Wars joke. And he's like, fucking Han Solo. And he's like, did you say Chucky? I like Chucky. That's how he gets the name. There is no fucking reason for him to have the name. Yeah. So anyway, based off all that I just went through, I'm going to give this movie a 4. Like I said, I think it is a good movie. It really is. But there's so much shit involved around it that I have to give it a 4. So, there you go. Spoiler warning for the final time for a Child's Play movie, unless they eventually make another one. For Child's Play the remake from 2019, I'm going to ruin everything about it. So if you've never seen it, you have been warned. So the movie opens up with a commercial showing off the new and improved Buddy doll, is what they call it. Buddy spelled with an I instead of a Y. And basically, it's a home entertainment buddy toy thing. It controls the TV. It's an Alexa. It's like, hey, fucking buddy, turn on the radio, and the radio will come on, and it's supposed to like bring your kids their books, but it takes over as a parent, like it's making breakfast and shit, like it's really fucking weird. And this commercial showing it off, and then we hard cut from the nice family friendly ad about the buddy doll to the fucking sweatshop in Japan or China or wherever, where they're having to build these buddy dolls, and it's terrible working conditions. It's what I imagine Nike fucking shops look like all the time when they're building the Nike shoes. And one worker is falling behind. He is daydreaming. He's tired. He's overworked. And it just so happens that he is, diddling his thumbs, not working, right as his boss is walking by. And so his boss just fucking comes over and smacks him in the back of the head. And he's like, "You fucking lazy bitch." He's like, "You're going to sit around, fucking do nothing? Guess what? You're going to finish your shift today, and you're going to fuck off. You're never going to come back again. But make sure you finish your shift. Please finish your shift." And then he walks away. So this guy gets fired, but, he has to finish his shift. So he decides that as he's finishing up his shift to take one of the buddy dolls that he was programming and turns off all of the safety features on the buddy doll and packs it up in its box, puts it on the truck, and then we go outside where we see these two guys talking and having a cigarette, and then behind them we see someone jump off of the roof and land on a car, and it ends up being the worker guy. So he's the one that sets this whole movie into motion by taking off a couple safety features and then just jumping to his death. We go over to Aubrey Plaza, who takes over as the mother in this movie, replacing, I don't remember her name from the first Child's Play. It's a much younger, I take that back, it's a younger mom, and it's a older Andy, which kind of makes it weird, because Chucky, like, in this movie, I get he's like an entertainment thing, and he can control a bunch of shit, but he's still a fucking doll. And this is like a 13, 14-year-old, it seems like. Like, a doll is his best friend and shit. So it's kind of weird. It's kind of like how Child's Play 3 with the little black kid, I can't remember his name either, who he was super fucking into the Chucky doll. And we were like, "Man, kid, you're way too old. Like, you're way older than Andy was when Andy wanted this fucking doll. Like, why do you want this shit?" Anyway, she's working at this rip-off Walmart that I think it's called like Goody Mart or something. I don't remember the name of it. But this dude's trying to return a buddy doll because he's saying he didn't know the fucking thing was ginger. And his son doesn't want a ginger doll. He wants the blonde one. And Aubrey Plaza is like, "Oh, I'm so sorry that, you didn't just look at the open window in the packaging and see that he was ginger before you bought it. What a shame, And the dude is just like, "Man, fuck you," and just walks out. He doesn't get his money back. She gets done with her shift. She goes home to her apartment, and we're first introduced to this security guard who totally isn't Jack Black, even though he looks exactly like him. I should have looked up what the guy's actual name was, but the first time I saw this movie, I was like, "Holy shit, Jack Black is in this movie." And then it turns out he's not. Kind of reminds me, I'm very excited. Dead Island 2 is coming out soon, and I love the first Dead Island. Not a lot of people do. But if you remember way back at the first like E3 trailer for Dead Island 2, at the end, this dude gets like hit by a bus or a van, and this guy gets out and steals a shoe, and everyone was like, "Is that Jack Black? Jack Black's in Dead Island 2?" And it just ended up being like some random guy. That's how I feel watching this movie with this dude. Like, it's not Jack Black, but I want it to be Jack Black, but it never will be Jack Black. Anyway, he's in here like working on a security camera, and he like sort of stares at her and waves, and she's just like, and walks by. Once she gets to her apartment, we're introduced to the much older Andy from the first one. Like I mentioned, he's aged up. Apparently they just moved into this apartment, and they're new here, and Aubrey Plaza is urging Andy to go and make some fucking friends. And she's like, look at those two kids outside standing in the rain. Go make friends with them. And Andy's like, yeah, let me just go make friends with fucking weirdos standing in the rain or whatever. And Aubrey Plaza's like, don't be like that. And I'm like, yeah, be like that. What the fuck are you what kind of parent looks outside at two kids standing in the rain and be like, there you go, that should be your friend, you know? But Andy's like, nah, I'm good. So he's like, I'm done with this conversation, and he goes walking away. But she ends up, or no, he does end up walking away, and then he just goes and sits on like a bench in front of the store. It was real sad. Like, he's just a fucking loser. He get kicked out of the apartment, and he's just sitting on an empty bench somewhere. The next day, Aubrey Plaza goes back to work, and this lady shows up and is returning a buddy doll, because its eyes were red, and that's all you hear, because she starts to list off a bunch of weird shit that the buddy doll was doing, but Aubrey Plaza is just like zoning out, and it's Andy's birthday coming up, and she's like, oh fuck, I could just get him this buddy doll. So she doesn't think about it at all, or doesn't pay attention to what this lady's saying at all. So who knows, if she could have just listened for a fucking second, maybe everything in this movie would have been avoided. So she takes the lady's like, can I get my money back? And Aubrey Plaza's like, yeah. And she takes the doll, gives the lady her money back, and she goes and finds her boss, who she asks if she can take this thing home to Andy, because they just get thrown away, and she's like, oh, that's a waste. Why don't I just take it back home? And apparently this is the first time she's mentioned that she has a kid, because the boss is like, you have a kid? And she's like, yeah, I had a very productive sweet 16. So there you go. That's how they explain the age of the mom in this, is apparently she got knocked up on her 16th birthday. The boss is like, no, you shouldn't take the fucking doll home. And she's like, oh, really? Well, how about that? How about all those times that you bang your secretary? I'm sure your wife would really appreciate, that or whatever. And he's like, oh, go ahead, take the doll, And so she blackmails him into letting her take the doll. And so she heads on home. Then we cut over to Andy, and I was like, all right, cool, we're going to get Andy walking in and getting this present or whatever. But no, he walks into this dude trying to fuck his mom in the kitchen. They're just like in the middle of making out, and she's like up on the counter and shit. And Andy just walks in, and he's literally like the fucking Simpsons, walk in, put down the coat and jacket, see what's going on, and turn around and grab the... He just walks in. They're like, oh, hey, Andy. And he's like, I'll see you guys later. And he just fucking leaves. And then once again, like a sad little shit that he is in this movie, he just goes and sits in the hallway, like upstairs in the apartment. And when he does this, we're introduced to, fucking, God, I can't remember his name in this movie. But he's a cop who lives down, the hall from him. And I think we had seen him earlier, when some kids were like calling him pig or whatever, because, he's a cop. Let's see, hold on. Mike Norris. Oh, I guess he just plays... Yeah, isn't Detective Norris? That's just the guy from the first movie, so I guess it would make sense that it's the same name. But yeah, he's introduced to Officer Norris, who is like, oh, do you just fucking chill out here in the hallways, like with nothing better to do? And he's like, what? And the guy's like, I gotta come up here for my mom for her birthday. Or no, he like visits her like once a week. He's like, you want to come in and eat with us? So I have someone to deflect all of her personal questions on. And before Andy can answer, Aubrey Plaza comes walking up, and she's like, what's going on here? And the dude's like, oh, I was stopping your son from robbing people. He, trying to make jokes. And you can tell he's like trying to hit on Aubrey Plaza. But she's just like nothing's landing, and she's like, cool, I'll see you later, and she just takes Andy and walks away from him. Also, I gotta point out that the dude who plays Detective Norris in this movie is in Bullet Train, and he's really good in Bullet Train. He plays a pair of brothers with the dude from Kick-Ass, who played Kick-Ass. I don't remember his fucking name, but he's in everything nowadays. But yeah, he was really good in Bullet Train, so go check that movie out if you haven't. Um, so she takes Andy back to the apartment. She's like, hey, sorry, you walked in on me trying to get some dick. But hey, I know it's your birthday, so I got you something. And she pulls out this present that's all wrapped up. And Andy gets excited and he unwraps it. And then he sees that it's a Buddy doll. And he's just kind of like, oh, this is for little kids. It came out a year ago. And she's like, I know it's the old model, but I couldn't, afford the new model, or it wasn't out yet. So let's just try to have fun with this thing. So Andy's like, sure. Well, he's like, fine, let's do it. So they take it out and they start to program it, and it comes online and it starts talking, and we get our first listen to Mark Hamill's portrayal of Chucky in this movie, which is kind of shitty. They really didn't take full advantage of Mark Hamill's voice acting abilities in this movie. It's kind of just like a soft, like, hi, Andy, what do you want to do today? And that's it the whole time. And I think one time in this movie he yells, and it's like at the very end of the movie. But compared to Brad Dourif, who, one thing you can say about all the Chucky movies is usually Brad Dourif will give his fucking best performance possible to Chucky. And Mark Hamill's voice acting is very dead compared to, which I get, he's a computer, so he's not supposed to have the emotions that Chucky has in the other movies, but it's just kind of a letdown. So Chucky introduces himself. He asks Andy if am I your best buddy? And Andy's like, I guess so. And then he's like, cool. And we see that Chucky imprints Andy's face onto his memory as best friend. This is when he asks what his name is, and the kid is like, Han Solo. And then Chucky goes, did you say Chucky? And the kid's like, no. And he's like, I like Chucky. So now he's called Chucky. They try to program him to turn on the TV, but it doesn't fucking work. So Andy's like, oh, it's no use. He's broken. That's why these people were returning it. And Aubrey's like, shit, I'll take him back tomorrow. I'll just give you some money or something. And Andy like tries to, and he's like, no, Mom, really, I like it. It's cool. He's just trying to not make her feel as bad. So she's going to go make some dinner. And he's like, all right, I'm going to take Chucky to my room. So he just like, it's really, because it's a toy, but he just grabs Chucky's hand, and you just see them both like just walking normal into his room. Like it weirded me out for some reason. But he takes him in his room, and he starts showing him around. And we get our first little look at a picture of his dad, where it's like a picture of all of them in the family together. And before Chucky can like look at it anymore, Andy like puts the picture face down so you can't see it. And I think that's all they mention about his dad. I know in the first movie they just say his dad was in an accident. I think in this movie, correct me if I'm wrong, no one's fucking, I'm talking to myself, so you can, but I think maybe his dad was in like the military or something, and he was killed in combat. That might have been something. It also could just be that I just recently watched that Audio Slave, Don't Remind Me music video, where it's like the little kid who turns into a boxer and his dad got blown up in a jet and shit. So that's what I could be confusing it with. But anyway, night goes on, they eat dinner and everything, and then Andy's like, all right, I'm going to bed. And Chucky's like, do you want to sing the Buddy song before you go to bed? And Andy's like, not really. But then, as he's trying to go to sleep, Buddy's in the corner, and he's you are my buddy, my sweetest friend. He just sings it to himself while Andy's trying to fucking go to sleep. The next morning, Andy's going to school, and we get our first glimpse of Chucky learning how to do stuff after him. We see Andy like brushing his teeth, and we see Chucky mimicking brushing his teeth. Uh, and we also see as Aubrey Plaza is like chopping like some carrots or some shit, that Chucky is mimicking like a stabbing motion with the knife, and you're like, oh no. Uh, and that's basically as we go through the movie, kind of how Chucky learns to do stuff is he just copies stuff, and eventually, when it goes over the edge, I'm very happy at the way that he learns how to start stabbing later on in the movie, which it's a personal fail. I'm sure a lot of people were like, what the fuck is this? Because it's a lesser known movie compared to the original. But I'm very happy that it was in this, so that'll be coming up in a minute. Sandy goes to school. Nothing really happens. He comes back that day, and Chucky is waiting at the door for him. And Andy starts talking to him. Like he's just like he's like, hey, Chucky, you know? But then his mom's boyfriend is over on the couch, and we see like Aubrey Plaza is like asleep, and he's like, shh, and he's like, go clean your fucking room or so. He doesn't like curse or whatever, but he like shakes his head, and he's like, you know, and I was like, who the fuck is it? Like, well, you know, throughout the movie you learn just how much of a piece of shit this guy is. But dude just walking and like shushing people and shit. I was like, man, fuck this guy, you know? So Andy leaves, and he goes with Chucky, and they're hanging out on a fucking park bench. It's the same bench that he was sitting on earlier alone. And I don't know what's sadder, him sitting on the bench alone or him sitting with a doll, like trying to have a conversation with it. But he's talking about how everyone he likes leaves, his mom and him and shit, and his dad, and, you know, all these people. And Chucky's like, I'm never leaving you. And then Andy fucking like hugs him. And then we get a montage of them like playing cards and having fun and shit and pulling pranks. And I was like, what? And then in the middle of their fun montage of their best friend, you know, Andy drops a card when they're playing cards, and he reaches down to grab it, and their fucking pet cat that they have scratches him. It fucking scratches him and shit. And he's like, you know? And then Chucky looks at it, and he's like, kitty hurt Andy? And then Andy leaves the room to get a fucking, a Band-Aid. And when he comes back, Chucky is straight choking the fucking cat. And his eyes have turned red, and the cat's like, you know, trying... And Andy, like, has to grab him and stop him. And he's like, what the fuck are you doing, you know? And Chucky's like, kitty hurt fucking... kitty hurt Andy. He needs to pay or whatever. And he's like, no, you can't do that shit. And then in the middle of their arguing, the fucking boyfriend walks in. And he's got the cat. And he's like, what's going on in here? The cat's freaking out. And then he looks around, and he's like, fucking clean this shit up. Or whatever, and then he leaves, and Andy is like, well, maybe you can hurt that guy. And I was like, why the fuck would you say that, Andy? You've just seen that this fucking doll is seriously it was about to kill a fucking cat, and that should have been a red flag that something is up with the doll. But no, Andy's like, oh, you're my friend. You're my only friend. Because also, Andy has like a hearing problem in this movie that they never really go into all that much. But he has a hearing aid. Wasn't there another Child's Play that someone had a hearing aid? Fucking, maybe not. I know there's a Nightmare on Elm Street with the guy with the hearing aid. Maybe there's not another one. Anyway. Whatever. So after that, Andy then comes up. This is almost immediately like the next scene after Chucky just tried to murder a cat. Andy comes up with this prank to scare the boyfriend, where he makes Chucky like do like this creepy voice, and he wants him to like look scary. So he's like, tilt your face this way and move your eyebrow up, and he makes Chucky contort his face until eventually Andy is like, oh man, you're almost too good at it. Like, it's almost too scary, you know? And so then, fucking, we see, well, first, as this is happening, they're doing it like in the hallway. Because I guess they just decided to go outside. As they're doing this, those two kids from the rain walk by. And one of them is like, he says like shit or something like that. And Chucky goes, shit. And the kid's like, hey, they're not supposed to be able to do that. And Andy's like, yeah, he does a lot of things he's not supposed to be able to. And instantly that just makes them best friends because they have this doll that can curse. So they're like, what are you doing out here? And he's like, oh, I was coming up with a plan to scare my mom's boyfriend, but I probably shouldn't. And the guy's like, no, you definitely should. And so then they do. They get it to where like they can watch the footage through Chucky's eyes on the phone, and basically they fucking, they make the Chucky like stand behind the refrigerator door when the dude's opening the refrigerator. So then when he closes it, it like scares them. And they're like, hee hee hee. And they, fucking running around. They use Chucky to steal snacks from the janitor. They make him fucking go outside. And these kids try to get Chucky to stab this unicorn and say this is for Tupac and record it to make it go viral. But it's not working, and then that night, or, this is probably a couple nights later because they've been hanging out for a while now. They're having movie night, and the movie they're watching is Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Of course, the classic sequel to Texas Chainsaw Massacre with Chop Top and Stretch and all that good stuff. The weird thing, as they're watching this movie, everything is out of place. It goes from like the fucking radio station scene to the beginning with the two guys driving down the road and getting fucking killed by Leatherface, to the ending with Stretch hitting Chopped off the mountain, to like in the middle where Stretch like takes that dude's face and puts it back, and all this shit. Like, it's very misconjoined. I don't know why. But anyway, they're watching all these people get killed, and they're having a great time, and they're laughing and hooting and hollering. And Chucky is watching this whole thing, and he learns that Andy likes it when people are getting killed. Like, everyone's having a great time because of this. So Chucky goes into the kitchen, and he gets a knife, and he comes walking back in, and he comes back in saying, heads up, bitch, because that's what one of the kids said when someone was about to get killed. And they look over and they see him with the knife. And at first they're like, oh shit, that's fucking sweet. But then they realize he's not like playing around, and he's getting closer and closer to one of the friends. And he starts to like bring the knife down, and Andy jumps in the way to stop him. And fucking Chucky cuts his arm. And Chucky's like, what? I hurt Andy? He's like, I'm so sorry. I didn't, I just wanted to make you happy. And everyone was laughing. And then Andy's like, no, you can't fucking do that. So they go and they take him and they lock him up in this fucking closet. And it's real sad. We see like sad Chucky in the room in the dark. And Andy's all mad at him and shit. And and so poor Chucky just wants to make Andy happy. He doesn't understand. Also, can I say that when I first saw this movie, I really enjoyed the friends I really thought they were funny and stuff. And upon second watch, I found them annoying beyond belief as I was watching. I was like, oh my God, I fucking hate them all. So, times have changed, I guess. Chucky, I guess, because now he feels slighted, I guess, because he was just trying to make Andy have fun, and, now he feels like Andy's treating him bad. So he goes into the kitchen again where the boyfriend is, and this time he plays a recording of Andy saying Shane is such an asshole. Shane is the boyfriend, and he plays it over and over again. So basically, he's snitching on Andy. The boyfriend goes and tells Aubrey Plaza. So Aubrey Plaza is mad at Andy and thinks that he put Chucky up to going in there and saying that. But he says, it wasn't me, Chucky just did it or whatever. And she's like, yeah, sure, whatever. And she takes Chucky and throws him in like a china cabinet. And she's like, "You only get, I'm limiting the amount of time you get with him. I should have never got you this. It's a fucking robot friend that you have now." And she locks him up in the china cabinet. That night, we're in Andy's bedroom and we just hear like a bunch of fucking banging going on, and all it is Chucky trying to get out of the china cabinet. And eventually the bangs get louder and louder and more violent and shit. And it's really well done. Like it really is demonstrating, Chucky becoming less of like a innocent doll to this violent creature he's becoming. The next morning, they go out in the fucking the room, or no, it's the next day after school. Andy comes home and we see that the china cabinet has been the glass is broken, and Chucky has gotten out. And with his free time, he's taken it upon himself to go and kill the fucking family cat. And Andy finds it dead in the middle of the floor. He looks over and Chucky is standing in the corner, and Chucky plays a recording of Andy. Or no, Chucky just says that the cat was keeping them apart because he had heard Aubrey Plaza saying that Chucky freaks out the cat or whatever. So he's like, the cat keeps us apart. Now we can be together again. And Andy's like, that's not how this works. And then Chucky plays him a recording of Andy saying that he's sick of this fucking cat or whatever. And once again, Chucky just trying anything to make Andy happy. Andy, for his part, I will give him credit. He's looking out for his homie Chucky. He knows he means well, so he fucking just throws the cat down the garbage chute to protect Chucky. So Aubrey Plaza doesn't know what happened. That being said, it's fucking garbage chute in an apartment where I guess Andy just thinks whatever you throw down there will never see the light of day again, because he does it multiple times in this movie. And I was like, that's not how that works. It just goes downstairs and the fucking guys who work in the garbage chute are gonna see it. Like, what are you doing, you fucking moron? That night, Andy's trying to go to sleep. And this is one of the most messed up parts of the movie to me, is he's trying to go to sleep and we hear a recording click on with Chucky, and he just plays him the recording of the cat, the sound of the cat as it's being killed. The cat's like, wah, 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 just making death cat noises and shit, and it's really fucked up and sinister, and I really like it. Later that day, Chucky sneaks into the bathroom where Shane is taking a piss, and scares him again, and this time, like, piss splashes up on him and shit. So Shane gets pissed off, literally, pissed on him, more like it, and he takes Chucky, Chucky then plays the recording again of Andy saying Shane is such an asshole. So, the dude takes Chucky and barges in to Andy's room and just straight up starts threatening the child. And he's like, come on, big man, you got a fucking problem with me, do something, And I was like, who the fuck is this guy? And Andy doesn't do anything because he's a fucking child and this is a grown man. And the guy's like, yeah, that's what I fucking thought. And then he leaves. And so Andy's upset, he's crying and shit. And he starts saying, I wish he would just leave forever and leave us alone. And, fuck that guy. And I realize this is a very emotional moment for Andy. But has he not learned his fucking lesson about saying stuff around Chucky? So, of course, he's saying this. And we see Chucky smile. And his eyes get the red tint going on. And some shit's about to go down. We see the dude leave. Aubrey Plaza tries to get him to stay, but he's like, nah, I'm leaving or whatever. And he goes home, and it turns out this dude has a whole nother family. He has a wife and 3 kids or something. Also, this movie takes place at Christmas time. I forgot to mention, there's Christmas decorations everywhere, and it's snowy out and all this shit. But yeah, he's got this whole fucking family. And he gets home, and you see him walk in, and he's hugging the daughters and stuff. And then it's nighttime, and he decides now's a perfect time to take down the Christmas lights, because I guess Christmas is past at this point. Uh, and so he just goes out at like 11 o'clock at night and just starts taking down the Christmas lights. Also, for some weird reason, he has a watermelon patch in his backyard. I don't know why the fuck it's there, why he has it. Does he sell watermelon? Is he a watermelon connoisseur? Does he enjoy watermelon? Why does he have this back here? You'll never know. Anyway, as he's like messing with the lights, we see someone watching him. And eventually Chucky goes over and he kicks out the ladder from underneath the dude, and the dude falls down, and we see both of his legs fucking shatter, just snap in half. And he screams and he's like, somebody help me. But we go inside and we see his kids have on earphones and they're on tablets, so they can't hear shit. They never show the wife, but I guess she's like fucking diddling her. I don't know, that was gonna be vulgar. I was gonna ignore that. I'm sure she was just listening to the music too. So yeah, he's all fucked up on the ground, and he's like, "Oh my god," you know. And then Chucky turns on this fucking backhoe type. I don't know what it is. It's this thing. It's got these blades that move, and you know it's gonna be a bad time if you hit it. And he slowly starts it off and just makes it start going towards the guy. And so it's coming from behind him. The guy's crawling away, so it's sucking up the Christmas lights that have wrapped around him. So he can't like get fully away because it's pulling him in at the same time. So it's getting closer and closer, and eventually the guy turns around to where his head is facing the blades, but he puts his hand and it stops the mower from moving, so it doesn't just start running up his legs. And he's like, "Oh, thank God." But then fucking Chucky comes out of nowhere and jumps up onto his stomach, and the guy sees him and he's like, "What the fuck?" And then Chucky just starts stabbing the shit out of him. He starts stabbing him in the stomach and shit. As he's doing this, this is when he says, "This is for Tupac," and he ends up doing what those kids wanted. And so he stabs the shit out of him, and the dude lets go of the saw, or the fucking lawnmower thing, and it runs over his head, and we see like his fucking face get peeled off and shit, and it flies away, and it just turns this dude's fucking head into mush. The next day, the cops come to the crime scene, and we see it's Detective Norris from down the hall, and he recognizes the guy who is dead because they know who, you know, he had seen him go in Aubrey Plaza's apartment or whatever. So he's like, "Oh shit, I gotta fucking go tell Aubrey Plaza about this." So we go over to Andy's room, and he wakes up. It's morning time, and he's walking around his room. And as he does, we see in the background on his nightstand, there's a watermelon, but not just any watermelon. It's a watermelon that Chucky has taken, and he has nailed Shane's face onto the watermelon. And Chucky is like, "Holy shit, what the fuck is this?" You know? And so, you know, he looks around and he sees Chucky again, and he's like, "What did you do?" And of course, Andy plays or Chucky plays the recording of Andy saying he wants that guy to leave and never fucking, you know, come back or whatever. And Andy's like, "Oh my God." And I'm like, "Yeah, you fucking dummy. You didn't learn your lesson the first time?" So then Andy calls his two friends. He assumes that they'll come and help him out, and he tells them everything that happened. But they say they can't tell the cops because who's going to believe that this fucking doll killed, you know, this guy? Which we've seen in the past, every movie before this. The cops never believe you because it is an insane fucking story to tell the cops. So they say, "All right, well, you know, we'll help you out and shit." So they take the the watermelon with the face, and they wrap it up like a Christmas present, and they're just gonna throw it down the garbage chute. That's once again, that's how they plan to just get rid of this thing. So right as they're about to leave the apartment, Aubrey Plaza comes walking in, and she's like, "Oh hey, what do you got there?" And Andy's like, it's a present for Miss Norris down the hall. She's been helping me with a project or whatever." And she's like, "Oh, cool. Come on, we'll go together. We'll give it to her." And Andy's like, okay. So they go down the hall to Miss Norris's door, and they knock on it, and she answers. And fair game to this lady, Aubrey Plaza's like, "Hey, Andy has this present for you for helping with his homework or whatever." And she looks at Andy, and Andy's giving her the look like, just fucking go with it, you know? And this lady fucking, she's like, "Oh, yeah," you know? And she just takes it and goes along with it, and she's a trooper. So shout out to that lady. So they give her the fucking, the watermelon, and then they go back to Andy's apartment, and now him and his friends have to come up with a plan of what they want to do with Chucky, and they decide they gotta fucking take him out. They gotta fucking kill him. They gotta take his battery out and shit. And so that's exactly what they do. They have Andy go into the closet where they had locked him away. And he has him come walking out, and Chucky's like, "I just want you to be happy, Andy." But as he's walking, the two friends jump out from behind, and they fucking jump Chucky's little ass, and they get on top of him, and he's thrashing around, and he's like, Andy, what's happening, Andy?" And Andy's like, "I'm sorry, Chucky, this is what we gotta do." And then fucking legit sad as fuck, Chucky starts doing the "You are my buddy." He starts like singing it and shit. Cause he doesn't know what he did wrong. He really doesn't know. He just thinks he's doing what Andy wants. So anyway, yeah, he starts, trying to sing, but it doesn't work. And they pull out his little Iron Man heart that he has in the middle of his chest, and he deactivates. And then once again, the fucking same thing though. They go and throw him down the garbage chute. They're like, "There you go. No one will find them down there." But of course someone does, because non-Jack Black janitor dude finds him down there, and he's like, "Oh shit, it's a Buddy doll. This is a fucking gold mine." And so he goes and he takes Buddy and he hooks him up on a table to like a car battery and shit. And he starts taking them apart with a drill and putting them back together. And he starts working on him. That night, we come into Aubrey Plaza's apartment, and we see the cops telling her about Shane being dead and how he had a whole family and shit. And so now she knows about, that stuff going on. The next day, Andy goes back to Mrs. Norris's apartment and knocks on the door, but Detective Mike opens it up, and he's like, "Hey, you want to come in for dinner or whatever? You came to, lend your assistance at dinner like I offered?" And then he's like, "Yeah." And so he goes in for dinner. Or no, I'm sorry. Before that, it's Andy who he's like, "Oh, I'm here for that dinner you offered." And Detective Mike is like, "No thanks." And he just shuts the door in his face, and then he opens it up, and he's like laughing, and he's like, come on in, I'm just playing." And I kind of think that was improvised. Like, I think he was supposed to let him in, and the guy just made up, like, closing the door, and that's why he opens up, and he was laughing or whatever. But it could have been in the script, but it seemed like an improvised moment to me. So they go in, they have dinner with Detective Norris and his mom. And the whole time they're laughing, Andy is like focusing on the background where the present hasn't been opened yet. It's still just wrapped up, in the back. And Detective Norris notices him looking at it. So he asks his mom what it is. And the mom is like, "Oh, that's Andy gave me that for helping him with his fucking homework or whatever. We're going to open it up together on New Year's." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And so as this is happening, we cut back to the janitor's room, and he gets Chucky online. He brings him back up, and Chucky's alive, and he's like, "Oh," and we see that the janitor has cameras set up in everyone's apartment, And so Buddy or Chucky looks at the cameras and he sees Andy and he gets all excited and shit. He's like, Andy! But then I'm like, oh no, because the old lady goes, yeah, Andy, you're my new best friend. And I was like, no, and Chucky's like, you fucking bitch, you took my friend. So anyway, after they have the discussion about the present, Detective Norris like starts to tell Andy a fucking story or some shit. But Andy just gets up in the middle of the story, grabs the present, and takes off out the door when the guy isn't looking. And the guy turns around and he's like, not even 12-year-olds want to hear me talk, you know? So then, once again, garbage chute. He just he just goes to the garbage chute and just throws the present down there. And he's like, good, I'll never have to deal with that thing again. So then Jack Black, the janitor, gives Chucky a new Iron Man heart and gets him back online, and he can control all the devices in the fucking in his room and shit. Catlin, that's the product. The Catlin Products is the name of it. So the janitor's like, cool, you're working. And then he goes over to start putting something on the computer, but he looks up and we see that he's put a camera in Aubrey Plaza's bathroom, and she's in the process of getting naked and she's about to take a shower. And just as she's about to like take her clothes off, Chucky connects to everything and shuts down like the TV or whatever. And the dude's like, Catlin, turn back on. Like he's freaking out. And it turns back on. And he sees her getting in the shower or whatever. But then he turns around and Chucky is gone. He's not sitting there anymore. And he's like, oh, what the fuck, you know? Chucky makes the lights go back off. And the dude tells them to come back on, and they do. And they play this cat and mouse game a couple times where Chucky will turn stuff off and then the dude will turn stuff back on until eventually Chucky gets like a scalpel and he runs by and stabs the guy in the leg. And then he like slashes his chest and shit sometimes, you know. And so the dude goes and he stands on top of a fucking table saw to get away from Chucky. But Chucky breaks the leg on the table saw, so the guy grabs a pipe above him. But then Chucky turns on the saw, and the pipe is like for hot water or steam or whatever for the heat. And he turns up the heat till it's like 150. And so the dude is just burning his fucking hands while the saw is running underneath him. And eventually he has no choice but to let go and just get fucking annihilated by this running saw on top of him. Pretty sure this guy could have probably tried to maneuver and get away from it, but he just fucking eats it like a man. So there you go. So Jack Black is dead from this movie. The next day, Andy goes into the hallway, and the kid who was trying to get Chucky to do the "This is for Tupac" line earlier has his own buddy doll now, and Andy's all sad and shit, thinking about all the good times he had with Chucky. And then he realizes that is Chucky. He's like, wait a minute, that is Chucky. You know, he starts matching up like his camera feed and shit to it, and he's like, no, that's Chucky. So he tries to tell fucking the dude you know, that's Chucky, but the kid doesn't fucking listen, and he's like, get out of here, you know. Or no, he figures out that it's Chucky because they end up at like the fake Walmart that his mom works at, and Chucky walks up to him and he's like, hey Andy, it's me, Chucky, I'm out, you know. And he's like, what the fuck? And then he puts up on the camera, he takes over all the TVs and he puts up a picture of the dude's face on the watermelon, and he's like trying to blackmail Andy. So Andy jumps on Chucky and starts to beat the shit out of him. But that's when that kid who it's his buddy doll runs up and he's like, what the fuck are you doing to my doll? You're just mad that your shit is broke or whatever. And then he's like, fuck you. And they start fighting and shit. And they're fighting. The dude, Andy's hearing aid like comes out. All this shit. The one friend tries to break it up of Andy, but he ends up getting like elbowed in the mouth or whatever, and they're like, oh. And he's like, I'm trying to tell you guys that's Chucky, but fucking no one believes him. So they just abandon him, and they're like, "Fuck you, Andy," you know. And now the friends also, like in a later scene, think that like he was making up the Chucky killings, and they're like, maybe he was the killer all the time, you know. So that night, Andy's all sad. He's in trouble from his mom for getting in a fight at the store, and he connects to his buddy app, and he sees on the phone a live stream from Chucky's point of view of him stalking Mrs. Norris as she's heading out to go to a restaurant. Andy tries to stop her from leaving, but she's already in this car that she's taking, and she doesn't hear him. The car that she's taking is a new Catlin car, which is basically a Tesla, but it's just a self-driving fucking Uber. And so she's all excited. She's like, "Look at me! I'm in a self-drive," you know. And she pulls up in front of the store that she's supposed to get out at. But the next thing you know, the car turns red inside and starts driving backwards, and she's freaking out, and it starts spinning around in circles, and eventually it stops, and right in front of her is Chucky, who is in control of the car. And he turns off the seatbelts and everything, and the airbags, and so she can't. I think she just like ends up trying to hold on to a seatbelt, but she can't put anything on. The car starts talking to her, and it's Chucky, being like, "You bitch, you stole my friend. This is what you fucking get." And then he makes her slam into another car, and I think the car like flips over on its side too. Either way, she wakes back up, and she hears Chucky once again, and he's saying peekaboo, you know? And he says peekaboo like right behind her in the back seat. So she does like a slow turn back there. And I couldn't help it. Why do people in horror movies do this slow turn bullshit? Wouldn't they want to like turn really fast to catch them? But they always do like the slow build tension turn. And she looks back there. And there, no one's there. And then when she turns back around, Chucky like jumps on top of her, and he goes to stab her, but we cut, and so it happens off screen. Andy, back in Andy's house, his mom is interrogating him because she saw the cat's leash strung up on the door handle when she came home, and so she wants to know what the fuck happened to the cat. And he's like, "Listen, I don't fucking know. I didn't do nothing to him." But then he starts coming clean to her that Chucky's doing all this, and he's killing Miss Norris from down the hall, and you gotta help me. But she doesn't believe him. In fact, she thinks that he's like fucking crazy. And she's like, I gotta go like to work, but me and you gotta talk about this. She leaves. We go over to the crime scene, and we see Detective Norris find his mom dead. And he also, they show him like a picture of the watermelon with the guy's face on it, and he recognizes the paper around it. So he knows it was Andy, so he's all pissed off looking or whatever. We cut back to the apartment, and Chucky is hacking into all the Catlin products in the apartment, and he's talking shit to Andy, and Andy gets pissed off, and he starts like smashing everything with a bat, trying to find which one Chucky is in. But of course, Aubrey Plaza walks in, and she just sees her son like busting up a TV with a baseball bat and shit, and so she's like, "Oh my god, he's fucking gone insane." So she basically is keeping him under like lockdown with her, where she's taking him to work with her, and she's like, "You're not leaving my fucking sight." So she takes him to work because he's all, in trouble. The next day, it's the two friends who are hanging out, and they see cops going to Miss Marie's doorway, and the girl is like, maybe Andy was telling the truth, and maybe Chucky really is, back. And the kid's like, nah, he didn't fucking do that shit. And so they're like, well, there's only one way to tell. And so they go up to the friend who now has the buddy doll, and they ask to see his phone. And he's like, why would I show you my phone? And they're like, just give us the fucking phone. And so they take the phone. and they watch all the recordings of the murders happen or whatever, and they realize Chucky is back, and so they gotta go help out their buddy. So they head to the fake Walmart. Um, At the store, we see the boss from earlier, who Aubrey Plaza blackmailed into letting her have the buddy doll, getting dressed in the new and improved buddy doll that has blonde hair and stuff, and he's getting in this big giant mascot outfit, getting ready for the unveiling. Uh, and as that's happening, the friends arrive, and even the friend who had the buddy doll, he's all in too now. He's like, "We're here to help, Andy." But as they go to like walk off to like save the day, fucking Detective Norris just shows up and tackles the shit out of Andy. And he's like, "Come here, you little fucking bitch." And he like handcuffs Andy, and he's like, "You're under arrest, you little shit." As this is happening, the manager is right about to come out dressed up as the new buddy doll, but then he gets stabbed through the fucking neck by Chucky. And so they opened up the curtain, and he just comes stumbling out. And he falls in front of this little girl, and the little girl's all happy because this buddy all stopped in front of her. And he lifts up the fucking helmet thing, and it just starts pouring blood on everyone from his fucking neck and shit. It's like they're in the splash zone at fucking at Waterworld, SeaWorld. And everyone starts running away. Officer Norris is like, "What the fuck is going on?" So he handcuffs Andy to a shopping cart, and he leaves to go try to help everyone out. The lights cut out, and all of the new buddies in the store start coming to life. Chucky is hacked into them, and all around the toys are just going crazy, attacking everybody. There's like a bear buddy doll and shit, and like all these crazy dolls. There's a leprechaun doll. And everything's just attacking everything. These drones are coming on, and they're flying into people. One of the drones is coming at Aubrey Plaza, but Officer Norris knocks her out of the way, and he just like, first the first one, Aubrey Plaza just like moves, and it hits the manager dude in the neck and just like cuts his fucking head. It just shreds him. Then it's about to attack Aubrey Plaza, and this is when Officer Norris knocks her out of the way, and he gets fucking chopped up in the chest and shit. And he's like, "Oh," and he just falls over, and he's just bleeding profusely and stuff. Chucky activates the emergency lockdown, so these big metal doors are sliding down to keep everyone inside. People go running outside to get away. And Andy and his friends could get away because the girl had come over and busted Andy out of his fucking out of the shopping cart prison that he was in. And they could leave, but Andy is like, "I can't leave. I gotta stop Chucky." And he realizes that his friends won't leave without him, so he tricks them into being like, "All right, I'll come with you." And so he starts to go out with them, but then he jumps back inside and locks them out. So he's in here all by himself. He goes looking for Chuck. He hears Chucky like talking in his hearing aid. Chucky hacks into his hearing aid and shit. And Chucky is telling him that he's gonna take out everyone that he loves, and I'm going to be the only one left, and me and you can be best friends and stuff. And we see that he has kidnapped Aubrey Plaza. He puts her up on the TV, and she's like tied up in a fucking chair and shit, which I'm not sure how Chucky managed to do that, but he's full of surprises, that little guy. So he's taking her captive. Andy comes looking for him, but Chucky just jumps him and fucking knocks him out from behind. As Andy wakes up again, he sees that now Aubrey Plaza is standing up, and Chucky has tied a noose around her neck and has tied the other end to a forklift, and he slowly starts to lift it. Chucky then tells Andy, they start fighting again. Chucky like has him tied down. He's like, "I'm going to cut you open and see what's inside of you, just like you guys, did to me or whatever." And he goes to start to stab Andy in the chest, but Andy starts singing the buddy song to him, and this makes Chucky stop for just a second, where he's like, "What?" And then Andy just fucking just hits him over the side of the head. He goes flying, and then he climbs up the forklift, and the mom has been hanging this whole time. And he manages to like get up with this knife and cut the mom loose. And they can fall down or whatever. I don't know how. She's like got her hand tied behind her back and shit. And I was like, man, this is gonna fucking hurt when she fucking falls, But apparently it's fine. So Chucky comes at him again. They start, but he's a fucking doll, so Andy just gets on top of him immediately. And he goes to stab him in the chest, in the little Iron Man heart again. And Chucky starts singing the fucking the buddy song again. But it doesn't work. He gets stabbed in the heart, and he's like, and he shuts down. So the kid goes back to check on his mom, and we hear as Chucky is shutting down, he's still singing. He's still, "You are my buddy," and he keeps singing, and eventually he gets to the part about, friend until the end or whatever, and this is when he yells. And he's like, "Until the end," and he goes jumping, and we get like this fully CGI Chucky jumping through the air. It looks really bad, but then he gets shot out of the air, and we turn to look, and it's Officer Norris who is standing there, and he's like, "This is the end, motherfucker," and then Aubrey Plaza goes over and like rips off Chucky's head. And she's like, "No one fucks with my son." Even though all the work was kind of taken care of, I appreciate the spunk, I guess, Aubrey, but everything was taken care of then. So afterwards, we see everything getting cleaned up. The mom and the Officer Norris get loaded into separate ambulances. Then we see the kids who have taken Chucky's body and are just beating the shit out of it with baseball bats and shit. And that was pretty cool. And then there's a part where they're at the end, we see them hanging up. They're on a billboard, like they're up, they've climbed the billboard and they're sitting up there. And there's just this random fourth kid who hasn't been in the movie at all. Who I was like, who the fuck is he? And how dare he sit here where all these other kids are sitting and act like he was a part of that? But anyway, then the movie ends with the commercial from the people again playing over. And we see all these buddy dolls in a truck. And one of the doll's eyes turns red, and then the credits are overlaid with Mark Hamill singing the "You Are My Buddy" song. And there you go. That is the end of Child's Play 2019. This movie had a budget of $10 million, made a box office of $45 million. So it made a little profit, but ultimately they haven't made any more. And instead, Don Mancini and them just went ahead with the TV show that has been running for 2 seasons. I've already covered season 1. Season 2, I'll start jumping into. And I know they're greenlit for season 3, so there's more of it coming. But that's where Chucky stands right now. Let's do best of, worst of for this one. My best of is probably going to be when Chucky is playing the recording of the cat. Of him murdering the cat. It's just so sinister and disturbing. It's really good. It's one of my favorite aspects of the whole computer doll type thing. Worst of is going to be the CGI Chucky jumping out at them at the end. It was just, it doesn't look good at all. It reminds me of the big CGI Chucky and the nightmare scene from Cult of Chucky. But, So, anyway, there you go. That's best of, worst of. And that's it. We're at the end. Child's Play is done. Until, obviously, the TV show. But the movies are done. And we're on to bigger and better stuff. And, next week, I don't know what to watch. I kind of want to watch Pearl, but I kind of want to wait to try to get Tyler on here. I don't know if that'll ever happen. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Pearl, there's that Outwaters movie that came out, but I think that's like just theaters, and I don't know if I would go watch that. Also, I looked it up. It's called a fantasy mystery, but I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be a fucking horror movie. So whatever. Uh, I'm gonna be honest. I think next week we're gonna watch Mother from 2017, the Jennifer Lawrence, and I can't remember the name of the dude, but I've always wanted to watch it. I've never watched it. I hear people either really love it or really hate it. So I think we'll watch that next week. That'll be what we check out. So next week, look out for Mother. That'll be what's coming up. And yeah, go check out the gaming channel. Resident Evil 6 video should be coming out tomorrow if you're watching this the day the podcast comes out. And more Madden stuff. And then there's also a gun video coming up. Gun from 2005, 2006? I think it's 2005. But great game. So that'll be coming out as well. So go look at those. Anyway, besides that, I got a cool ass fucking lighthouse inspired tattoo. It's a lobster and then a scroll that says, "You're fond of me, lobster, ain't you?" Which I got done. I'll add in a picture here of it. So shout out to that tattoo. Shout out to Brian who did my tattoo. Great job. I really like it. So that was cool. Tyler also got a Texas Chainsaw Massacre tattoo. He got a chainsaw. It's the exact model chainsaw from the movie on his arm. Maybe I'll include that in here too. But anyway. And hopefully I can get his fucking ass on the podcast soon. He's just sitting around. He just hasn't been here. So anyway. Yeah, that's it. Next week, Mother. Come back. See you guys then. Bye-bye.